It's time for Reason.
Why should we feel guilty for arresting you? Why should we be like, you know what? Okay, you're a chemist, you're a teacher, you're contributing to society. Let's just let it slide. Why? We have laws for a reason, and it makes no sense to me. Why would we just say, you know what? We need to reform our immigration policy, and it's just too stringent. We're just going to say, rule of law, hey, here's a window. Let's go ahead and throw it out there.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610, and broadcasting across the entire Mid-America network in the Mid-America region. Welcome aboard. Great to have you along. It is a Daylight Savings Monday. Hopefully you've set your clocks forward a little bit. You're not still sleeping in. You haven't forgotten about it. And I get it. It's a little tough today. That's what we're here for, to help you start your day the proper way. It is a Monday right here on The Voice of Reason. As usual, time to get you pumped up, get you excited, get you ready to go for a whole nother week, especially being a little bit earlier this morning than usual in what you're ready to go for. Let's go ahead and start you off the right way.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
That's what we're all about. Welcome back in. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. It's been a heck of a weekend, but we love having you back with us after a crazy shenanigans weekend. I tell you what, with all the basketball tournaments that were going on between the Big 12 tournament, if you're a KU, K-State, Oklahoma fan, if you are a Shocker fan with the Shockers down in Florida with the American Athletic Conference tournament, that was a lot of fun with the high school games we had going on here on the station. It was a lot of craziness. It was a lot of fun, but basketball season kind of getting into the big heat of that, as you know, with the now the madness that's beginning this week, and we'll have more information coming up for you a little bit later on the show. For that, if you're in the Wichita area, brackets that you can get and ways that you can win some fun little goodies and just have a great time with it. If you are a politically oriented individual, which is probably why you're tuned into this show this early in the morning, it was a fun weekend as well. I've never seen in my entire life, I've never seen so many individuals want to go off and criticize a leader for wanting to sit down and talk with someone who's actually wanting to cause harm to the United States. I've never seen this before. You would think that if the pacifists, the ones who don't like us going out and creating conflicts, that don't like us being the warmongers that we are with the United States, that they would be happy with the fact that we're sitting down with somebody at a table and trying to talk to them about not causing a nuclear war going on. So I've never quite seen pacifists and anti-war advocates advocating for an actual conflict to happen as opposed to wanting to sit down and try and work this out peacefully. It boggles my mind. So we'll talk about that in just a few minutes as well. Not to mention, it is daylight savings, as I mentioned, moving the clock forward a little bit. It's going to be just another hour or so until we actually see some sun coming up and see the morning start. It's going to be very difficult for some individuals. I have not had my energy drink yet this morning, so it was a little difficult for me as well. But what I did was I actually tried to set it for the entire weekend, so that way I was trying to wake up on a normal basis during the weekend. According to doctors, though, and we talked about this a little bit last week on Friday as we were preparing for the daylight savings, and we've had different states wanting to get rid of the daylight savings time. So now that we've sprung forward that we're not going to change it anymore in some states just don't want to recognize any of it. They just want to sit back and, you know what, don't mess with my clocks. And according to doctors, I don't get what the big fuss about all this is, but apparently, according to a Swedish study, they found that the risk of having a heart attack increases in the first 3 weekdays after switching to daylight savings time. Which I don't know if that's necessarily true. Nowadays, they say that unless you get exactly 8 hours of sleep on the dot, then you're going to have higher risk of heart attack or heart issues, that you're going to be less productive at work, that you're going to have depression, that you're going to have anxiety, that you're going to have all these issues because you didn't get the exact 8 hours. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's all it is the fact that because you got 1 hour less of sleep, unless you went to bed early last night, which would be the smart thing to do, was just go to bed an hour earlier, try to go to sleep a little bit earlier, and then you wake up a little bit earlier, and then guess what? You do that for a couple days, and boom, you're back on a regular schedule, just at a different time. It's like when you travel, and you travel into different time zones, or you travel into, maybe across the country. Let me tell you, when I traveled across the world the one time I actually left the country, and I went to Sri Lanka, which was literally 12 hours away on the other side of the world. And at that time, I was living in Colorado, which was mountain time. It was exactly a 12-hour difference from mountain time. So when I traveled over there, I literally had to adjust my entire clock to 12-hour difference. When it was 7 o'clock in the morning in mountain time in Colorado, it was 7 in the evening in Sri Lanka, a day ahead. So I had to adjust. And guess what? You adjust. I literally took one day, and I slept all day and all night over there, and then I was caught up and ready to go again. It's not that big of a thing, but everybody panics. Now the doctors say that milk will give you cancer and that 20 minutes less of sleep will give you some type of anxiety, some type of depression, or some type of potential heart attack risk. And we need to just be able to adjust, buck up, buckaroo, cowboy up, and just be able to get her done. So hopefully you're able to do that. I'm here to help you do that. And let's go ahead and get you started off in the morning. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Are you having difficulties? Let's go to the phones and find out. Shall we? Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, this is David, Andy. Good morning.
Hey,
sir.
Good morning, David. How are you, sir?
Oh, feeling residual effects from a night of birthday partying in my hometown of Springfield.
Oh, see, there you go. So it wasn't even the daylight savings change that affected you. It was just the good old party. There you go.
Yeah, one thing that was cool, hey, when he was talking about body effect, I just turned 42 on Saturday. I've never had no, ill effects. If I can get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, I'm kind of like you. I'm good. My motor can run for probably 24 hours straight.
Let's be clear. 4 hours of sleep. If I get exactly 4 hours of sleep, then I'm kind of okay. If I get anywhere from like 5 to 7, then I'm usually dragging. So I personally need to either get like exactly 4 hours, or I need to get about 8. Anything in between, I wake up feeling really ridiculous, and I don't care for that too much. But yeah, I gotta have one or the other.
And I went through, you was talking about, going from different time zones as well. My dad lives in Alaska. They are 3 hours behind us, right? So right now it is 3 o'clock in the morning. And I went to see my dad about 5 years ago, went up there and stayed and visited him and my brothers for about almost 2 weeks. In first few days, I tell you what, the time difference was cool because I could hang with them, partying-wise. Then after about 3 days, I'm like, oh, okay.
You're like, done.
A little different. Yep. And they even tried to call, my wife was like, hey, call me in the morning before I go to work, right? And I'm like, I had to set the alarm like, oh, man, I got to call her at 3:30 in the morning in Alaska, But, hey, just wanted to say, hey, I want to thank everybody for all the birthday love, birthday shout-out. That was I had one of the best birthdays I've had in many, many moons. Got to see a lot of friends. I wish I had the video didn't turn out correctly, but all you gun-hating liberals out there, I had a video that was set up. My uncle, who's in the Army, and he's a gun lover and he's responsible, took my son. We went out to his house before I went out, and he let my sons go out in his backyard and, shoot some guns off. I had a picture and a video of a 15 and 16-year-old responsible firing an AR-15.
There you go.
Take that, you gun-loving or gun-hating liberals that want to take our guns away. Not saying don't be responsible, but you're not gonna take my guns away.
That's what it's all about right there. I like
North
that.
North Korea comments, Andy, that I'll save for later in the week. But I had to come to a good summation about this possible summit. You know what I mean? But I'll save that for later in the week.
Hey, well, very good. Well, happy birthday to you, my friend. I'm glad it went well, so I'm glad that the safe travel's back there and forth and rocking and rolling, my friend. So I appreciate that very much, David. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Right there, a great weekend. Making it happen. By the way, speaking of great weekends, I know that we just came off of this one with the daylight savings, trying to get. You better get adjusted quickly, because Saturday is probably the most important day of the entire year. Saturday is probably the most exciting day of the entire year, and that being, of course, St. Patrick's Day. So get ready, get prepared for that, because it's coming up to you very, very quickly. We need to be prepared mentally and however else that we may need to do so. I do want to touch on briefly, and we're coming up on a break here shortly, but I do want to touch on briefly this entire meeting with Kim Jong-un and President Donald Trump. I have never, as I tease, I never seen or never in my lifetime never have seen progressives, or anybody for that matter, progressives, Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives, whoever, I've never seen someone say, let's not try and talk to somebody to try and defuse the situation. I've never heard that before. And of course, now, first off, we need to be realistic about this. Are we going to settle all the issues that North Korea and that the United States have? Of course not. And that's not the point of this meeting. We're not going to come out of this and say, oh, there's never going to be a nuclear problem. We're not going to have any issues anymore. They're going to be friends with us. They're not going to be an ally. It's going to be great. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Is this for show? Yeah, a little bit. But guess what? Name one president that has come and sit down with the leader of North Korea in a meeting to discuss things. Name them. It hasn't happened. The fact that President Donald Trump even got to set up a meeting with the president of North Korea, with Kim Jong-un, means that Donald Trump is a successful leader. Means that we are doing something productive. What we get out of it, I don't know. Are we going to be able to feel a little more comfortable after this? I don't know. But the fact that it's actually happening means that President Donald Trump is already one of the most successful presidents that we've seen in the last how many decades? Right there. Just that fact. To talk and say, you know what, we've been butting heads a little bit. We don't want to see a nuclear war. What can we start doing to discuss and open up the line of communication to make something happen productively that doesn't result in war? Who doesn't want that? But it's just show, right? Give me a break. This is the Voice of Reason on a Monday morning. Stay here.
With Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, making it happen today. It is a Monday morning. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I want to get your thoughts on this meeting with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. Do you think President Donald Trump is going to be able to do something productive in this meeting, or will it be all for show? Will it be for nothing? Should we not even worry about it? Should we not even care about it? Is it something that, whatever. It's just for show. Donald Trump, he's not going to be able to do anything for us. He's meeting with North Korea. No one actually gets anything done when they meet with the crazies. Why are we meeting with dictators? Look at that. There's a comparison. He must really get along with dictators like North Korea, right? He must be a fascist, just like North Korea and Kim Jong-un. And we like Kim Jong-un, but we don't like Donald Trump because he's a fascist that actually relates to him, right? This is the lunacy that we're hearing from the left. If you remember, all the way back when, 3-4 months ago, it's been a really long time and we don't have long-term memories anymore. So I need to refresh individuals sometimes. Remember all the way back when the statues were a really big deal. The statues of Civil War memorials, the statues all over the country of certain individuals, and they were being defaced, they were being torn down, they were having problems, people were tearing them down and kicking them, they were acting like the tyrants that they want to be. And if you remember, one of the organizations was a communist, pro-North Korea group of students. And they were open about that. They were open about supporting communism. They were open about supporting Kim Jong-un. They were open about it while they were attacking Donald Trump for being a fascist and being an ideologue and being a terrible human being and being a racist and a bigot and everything of the sort, and not addressing the racial issues in the appropriate way, if you remember that. These are the same ones that are criticizing Donald Trump about meeting with North Korea because he is a like-minded dictator just like North Korea, at the same time being a socialist or a communist and having an emotional touchy-feely side of their mentality towards that type of ideologue or towards that type of governmental system. How can you have it both ways? How can you have it both ways? When you have Bernie Sanders advocating for socialism, raising taxes, wanting to destroy the American economy, wanting to tax the rich, wanting to punish the rich, wanting to take over the corporations, but yet Donald Trump's the fascist. And they're criticizing him. They're the ones criticizing him for setting up a meeting with the dictator and how he must get along with dictators while they're sympathetic to that type of ideology anyways. It doesn't make any sense to me. They will find anything just to tear apart Donald Trump. They'll find anything to criticize him. They'll find any way to hate him while they're actually sympathetic to what he's actually trying to do. The pacifists who don't want war are the ones criticizing Donald Trump for meeting with a dictator, for being a dictator himself and getting along with a tyrant or a dictator, and then saying we should probably go to war instead because we shouldn't have to sit down with these types of ideologues because Donald Trump's not going to do anything. It's all for show and it's a bunch of BS. Can you imagine the thought process that these individuals go through on a daily basis just to try and come out with this type of response? This is what we want, is a lack of conflict or a lack of war. And you're the ones criticizing it because you don't think anything's going to be done, and you want to link Donald Trump to a dictator when you actually are very sympathetic to that type of dictator. It's very fascinating to me. Let's go to the phones. What do you say? 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Hey, good morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm just absolutely looking forward to this negotiation to end the 70-year-old Korean War.
Well, I don't know if it'll end it, but it'll at least be a step in the right direction.
It will end it. I mean, it might not end it next week, but it will have it ended probably before the 2020 election.
Well, let me just say, if that is the case, if we end conflict with North Korea before 2020, that will lock, seal, and guarantee a second term for President Donald Trump.
Absolutely, and that's what the left is afraid of.
True.
Here's the thing: the North Koreans and the Chinese would really like to have the United States Army and its 50,000 troops. I think we have there right at the moment. Out of Korea. We can't take them out because we are at war. We have to be there. And we need to be there to guarantee South Korea. But South Korea now is more powerful today than the United States was in 1942. So we need to get these people talking. Now, Un wants to be assured that his country will be good. If he finds out that if he opens up and reunifies, South Korea is going to take over. South Korea is not going to go communist.
No, but they become a little more sympathetic to it. The last president that just got elected there that we need to remember is the president who said that he wanted a more closer relationship with North Korea, and he wanted to stop that conflict. And he admitted that he was more of a progressive who could work a little bit easier with North Korea. So we do need to be a little concerned about that.
Look at East Germany, West Germany.
Sure.
East Germany became just part of Germany again for the first time, since, I was born. And, East Germany has cost money to be rebuilt and updated.
Sure.
Because, they still had the World War II rubble piled up. But the same thing can happen in North Korea. We can get our troops out of South Korea. We'll still be there. We still have naval bases in the vicinity.
Sure, but we can start lightening up the load a little bit there. Jim, I hate to cut you off, my friend. Got to take a break at the bottom of the hour, but you make some really good points. Could this end it? It could be the step towards eventually. And if we do end up ending conflict with North Korea, then guess what? Trump's going to see a second term for sure. That would be a guarantee, which the Democrats hate.
Giving the libs one dose of sanity at a time.
I'm not being aggressive, I'm being dominant.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
It starts with
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason on a Monday. Great to have you along today. Kicking it, making it happen. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink when it comes to trying to jump your life forward by 1 hour this morning. We're here to help you do so. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Your thoughts on Kim Jong-un when it comes to the negotiation with North Korea. Also, I got some local news that we'll get to in just a second here as well. Kind of some interesting stuff. It's kind of a bust to me. I know we still got a long ways to go, but we haven't seen the excitement that I've been looking forward to when it comes to this election this year. So we'll touch on that in just a little bit here as well. But first, let's go to the phones, get your thoughts and calls when it comes to the negotiations. Do you think it's going to solve anything? Do you think it's going to help anything? Or is it just for show? It's not going to matter because Donald Trump, he ain't got no substance. All he's about is the ratings, for the publicity and for the show, and as long as he's got the show going on to be able to do the meeting, who cares what comes out of it? He was able to be, I mean, is that the mentality that we have here? Or is it, even if he does, and he is trying to do that, is it still going to be for the positive? Just the fact we're sitting down with Kim Jong-un at a conference, at a round table, sitting there and saying, hey, you guys hate us, we don't really care, keep trying to do what you're doing and you will be eliminated, or we can work happily together. Now, Kim Jong-un is going to be doing what the rest of the uns have been doing for a while, is he's really going to be saying, well, you used to provide us food, you used to provide us water, you used to provide us resources, you've been cutting that back, and we want that, or else we're going to throw a little fit because we are the 8-year-old child throwing a temper tantrum. And hopefully, we'll come back and say, you decided to become a communist nation. Look at your fellow citizens in South Korea, not your citizens, but the fellow neighbors in South Korea. Look how they're flourishing under capitalism, and then we can actually move forward in a positive direction if you begin to choose that way. We can together work towards trying to isolate China and some of the other communist nations in the region. We can start doing it. It's not going to happen, but we can at least try to advocate for this. But when you're in power as a dictator in a communist nation, you're not going to want to change it. So that's going to be the discussion, but they're going to say, hey, we demand this, we demand this, we demand this, and then we'll leave you alone. That's the way it's been going on for years, and as long as they continue to get their free little goodies and their little handouts, and they continue to allow their people to starve somewhat and then throw them some stale bread, then they're all happy. But we got to stop doing that. We got to stop treating them as if they are the 8-year-old child that gets the whatever they want to when they throw their temper tantrum in the middle of the mall. We're not going to allow that mentality any longer. Your thoughts and calls on this, 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Josh.
Hey, good morning, Josh. How are you?
Oh, doing great.
Good.
Now, with regard to North Korea, the negotiation didn't start just recently as far as that goes. It actually started in Poland shortly after the election when Trump started negotiating with the European countries,
sure,
with regard to oil and the effect that had on Russia. Now, in addition to that, the steel tariffs have been a very recent addition to that. There was also the UN Security Council vote to increase sanctions against North Korea, which was unanimous,
sure,
which included Russia and China. Shortly after those sanctions were put in place by the UN, Trump also had the U.S., and I don't remember exactly what it was, but basically any country or entity that had financial ties with North Korea, they would no longer have any access whatsoever to the United States. Now
that's a great
all
point. When we
that's
put
all on the economic front.
No,
on
exactly.
the military front,
sure,
he completely blockaded that entire region. So any shipments going into or out of North Korea were effectively blockaded.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a trifecta of strategy that, again, started shortly after he took office in Poland, not nowhere near Asia.
And that's a great point. And doesn't it feel good that we have a leader that says, you know what, you're not going to bully us around in order for you to get free resources from us. And we're not only going to blockade you with the resources that's coming into your country, but we're going to start hitting all the supporters of you. And if they want to support you over the United States, and guess what, you're not going to get our free goodies either. And we start taking control of the situation. Doesn't it feel nice that we're in a position to where we can actually do that again?
Oh, Oh yeah, absolutely. And one that I left out was shortly after Poland, he went straight to Saudi Arabia. And if you remember, now the media, they made fun of the glowing orb thing, and but that was an absolutely vital summit for the Middle East. And so what you do is you effectively reduce Russia's primary export, which is oil, and the high cost of oil, you drop that down considerably. So Russia's economic interest is in getting that figured out, and them along with China, both of those are linked.
Man, it's almost like we're doing productive. So, Josh, I hate to cut you off, my friend. We got to shift gears a little bit, but you make some really excellent points because from the media's perspective, Donald Trump's wandering around aimlessly in the White House in his robe, watching TV, eating Cheetos, not knowing what to actually do. He's needing to be held by his advisors and hold his hand to be able to direct him on what to actually do. And guess what? That's not the case. We've put pressure on North Korea since the beginning. Hey, when he went to the United Nations summit, if you remember that, he went to the United Nations and opened up and I mean, that's when he started joking about Rocket Man and joking about all these other things. But the fact of the matter was that he's coming down on any country that's supporting North Korea, any country that's supporting any type of communist dictatorship, and we're not going to tolerate it anymore. And guess what? It's working to the point where Kim Jong-un has been backed into a corner, and he says, fine, you know what? Let's go ahead and meet with the president, even though we don't like him, and maybe we can start working out something productively. That, my friends, means that already President Trump has been more successful than any president in the last 3 decades. Let's go to Rick with the news.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
It's kind of some good news in the morning, isn't it?
Good morning, Andy. Yes,
yeah,
indeed.
Making it happen.
All right, some headlines from across the state. No Manhattan high school football players will be charged in a beating that injured 2 teammates last fall. The Lyon County attorney said in a letter to the Riley county attorney last week that he found insufficient evidence to prove a criminal case in the October incident. The Manhattan Mercury reports 2 high school football players were hurt by teammates when they were kicked and hit in what was called a birthday beatdown. More fraternity news in the state of Kansas. A fraternity at the University of Kansas has been closed because of several health and safety violations and a failure to meet its national organization's guidelines. The National Sigma Alpha Epsilon organization announced last week that the Kansas chapter will close after 115 years at the university.
Wow.
The national organization didn't elaborate on what led to the closing. All Kansas members have been suspended indefinitely. The chapter will remain closed for no less than 4 years or until the last current members have graduated or left the university. Lawrence Journal World reports that the university had placed the fraternity on probation for 2 years after violations of the Students' Code of Conduct. You'll recall 2 other Kansas fraternities, the Delta Upsilon and the Sigma Phi Epsilon, have been suspended this year. And you'll recall the song It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere. Well, that probably wouldn't have boded well for this driver. The Kansas Highway Patrol reporting a Riley County officer was injured after a drunk driver hit the officer during a traffic stop. The incident happened around 1 o'clock Friday afternoon.
Starting the weekend early.
In Riley County, troopers say the 55-year-old driver swerved onto the shoulder of the road and crashed into a Ford Taurus and the officer. The officer taken to the hospital for treatment. The driver arrested for aggravated battery and DUI.
Whoopsies.
All right, that's the news.
I wonder how many of those DUIs, hopefully we don't see any, but how many we're going to see this weekend for St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
Like you forgot about St. Patrick's. like I allow anybody in this building to forget about St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah. Well, celebrate safely, people. That's all I can say.
That's what we're going to do. It's going to be a fun one. Rick with the news there.
And that's the news.
Appreciate it very much. We'll get another update from him next hour. I have my own political news coming up with some big news that happened over the weekend as well on Friday evening. We'll touch on that in just a little bit. But I do want to open up lines to you, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Wrapping up the discussion on Kim Jong-un and North Korea. I think it's going to be hugely successful. I think it's going to be a step in the right direction because they are backed into the corner. When you see your child throwing a temper tantrum in the middle of the mall right in front of the pretzel store because they want the pretzel, and you have an option. You have a choice. Do you grab your kid and haul them out and say, no, you're not going to act like that, or do you go and buy them the pretzel? What do you do? When North Korea has been getting those free goodies for a long time and you finally begin to put pressure on them because they're not going to bully people around any longer, then what do you do? Do you cave and say, okay, you know what, you can have some goodies? I hope that's not the case. Donald Trump talks tough during at the beginning of the negotiation, which he has to, and then negotiates. He's a negotiator. He's a business deal maker. I'm hoping that he does not give them too many free goodies and nice little goodies when they sit down at the table and says, hey, all we want is some stuff. And hopefully he says, ain't going to happen. We're going to not give you anything. You need to change your ways if you want to work with us and work a little bit closer and get some goodies from us. You need to change your communist style. You need to take better care of your people. You need to not be a crazy dictator. And if that's not going to happen, then good luck. And if you try to continue to threaten us, then you will no longer exist. That really needs to be the bold, steadfast position to be in. But God bless Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, all the ones involved with the UN, all the ones involved with foreign relations, because guess what? It's working. When was the last time we sat down with the dictator of North Korea? Oh, yeah, that was probably never. Jimmy Carter even came out and realized that, hey, if we can avoid some type of, if we can avoid a nuclear confrontation with North Korea, that would be a wonderful achievement. It's good we're going to be talking to them. Even a progressive like Jimmy Carter says, yeah, you know what? Why are we bagging on Trump? If we can avoid something like this is really good news. This is really awesome. Let's actually celebrate this and not criticize Donald Trump by calling him a dictator like Kim Jong-un and then saying that we actually want to resolve the situation. Give me a break.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Broadcasting live across the entire Mid-America Network. Welcome aboard. Great to have you along today on a Monday. It is Daylight Savings Monday, and let's try and wake up the best way we know how to. I know it's very difficult trying to get started when you're an hour earlier, but hey, you know what? Let's have a little fun today. What do you say? 316-721-8255. Let's go right back to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name? Hello. Hello, going once. Going twice. Hang tight there. Give us a call back. We want to hear from you. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. I do have some. I want to shift gears just for a second. We have some big news, ladies and gentlemen. Oops. Wrong one. Let's try again. The news of the day. As we are learning more and more about the upcoming election here in the state of Kansas, the midterm elections, and especially when it comes to the gubernatorial race. As Republican candidate Mark Hutton has officially suspended his campaign as of Friday afternoon. Republican candidate Mark Hutton on Friday put an end to a 6-month bid to win the 2018 nomination for governor. It's been an honor to travel to all four corners of Kansas to hear concerns and ideas for solutions that Kansans have for fixing the problems in our state government. I believe the solutions to our state challenges lie in its people, not its politicians, and I'm confident that the great people of Kansas will be what carries us all forward. There it is. Mark Hutton, now officially, and it's kind of unfortunate. Mark was a great individual, was a great candidate. I think he was a solid candidate for the election. Whether it was just the fact that he didn't get a whole lot of momentum, whether it was because he had struggles financially, I don't know what the problem was. The story doesn't explain, according to the Topeka Capital Journal, but he has suspended his run for the governorship. So now we're beginning to whittle them down Governor Jeff Collier still in the race. Secretary of State Chris Kobach still in the race. Insurance Commissioner Ken Seltzer still in the race, along with former State Senator Jim Barnett. All of them in the race for governor right now. Those four, along with the couple high school students, I have not heard about them dropping out as of yet, but you don't hear about them in the mainstream media. Not going to have much of a chance to be able to move a whole lot farther with their campaigns either. So it's really down to four. If you remember, at the very beginning of this, we had a lot of it. We were close to, 8, 10 different Republican candidates, which wasn't bad, and I liked it. But they're beginning to drop like flies, and they're dropping a lot quicker than what I had honestly anticipated. I thought we were going to get at least to about a month or so before the primary before we began to see some drop-off. Some of them would drop off now, mostly due to financial obligations and financial issues, but they're dropping off quickly. And the last four are going to be hanging in there. We'll see how long all of them do last. It is going to be interesting to watch, but I would have anticipated a little more mudslinging. I would have anticipated a little bit dirtier politics being played. I would have anticipated a little bit angrier campaigning, a little more, offensive campaign. Not offensive as in being offensive, but offense, playing offense, getting out there and doing a little bit more than we actually heard from the media. Now, maybe the media has something to play with this. Maybe the media is what actually kind of put some of these on the down low. Look, the media has its agenda. The mainstream media knows exactly what candidate they want to actually have in the general election and who they think is going to be easier to pick off. And to them, that is either going to be Governor Jeff Collier or Secretary of State Chris Kobach. They know those two, they feel, are going to be easier to beat in the general election. Governor Collier, they can just lump in and say that he's the brownback wannabe. It's not the case. But that's what they're going to try and play on the media. And Chris Kobach, they're going to just say that he's a radical, crazy person who hates people voting. That's the mentality that they're going to have. Now, Ken Seltzer, what are they going to come out with? They're not going to be able to attack him the way that they do the other candidates. Jim Barnett, they can maybe go off against his old record, but how much can they possibly play off of that one? They're concerned of the fact that they have a very heated primary for the Democrats this year, for the first time in 2 decades for a governor's race. And they're a little concerned about that, how badly they're going to beat each other up. We already saw the stories that we saw last week with Jim Ward and Laura Kelly going after each other about their records on the NRA. So they're already starting to throw the mudslinging back and forth at one another there. The Republicans have not done that. I saw one attack ad from a Republican this session, and it was from somebody who's already dropped out. The first one, actually, to drop out. And that was Ed O'Malley going after Chris Kobach. That was the only campaign ad that I've seen that's actually gone after somebody in the primaries. I have not seen the rest. All of them have been positive, which is a good thing. But at the same time, I'm a little shocked that we haven't seen more of it as they begin to go on the waning side of their campaign to do a little mudslinging against the top candidates, quote unquote, according to some of the polls, in order to gain a little attraction and gain some traction for their campaign. I haven't seen it. I guess that's a good thing because maybe we're seeing a uniting of the Republican Party. Maybe we're seeing Republicans play nice because we realize how important it is to maintain a Republican governor come this next election. We'll talk about more of that when we come back. Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
Why should we feel guilty for arresting you? Why should we be like, you know what? You're okay. You're a chemist. You're a teacher. You're contributing to society. Let's just let it slide. Why? We have laws for a reason, and it makes no sense to me. Why would we just say, you know what? We need to reform our immigration policy, and it's just too stringent. We're just going to say, rule of law, hey, here's a window. Let's go ahead and throw it out there.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, also simulcasting KGPT TV. Channel 2610. Good morning. Welcome aboard. It is a Monday, the Daylight Savings Monday. Oh, yeah. Hopefully you set your clock forward a little bit. Maybe you're having a tough time getting started this morning. That's okay. That's what we're here to do, is to help you start your morning the right way. Entertaining, exciting, intellectually stimulating, all around. That's just the way we roll. It is a Monday morning on The Voice of Reason. Let's go ahead and get you pumped up, set the tone, not just for today because it's daylight savings, but for the entire week. Let's get you some energy. Let's set off that adrenaline rush. Let's make it happen on a Monday morning.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it
That's just the way we roll. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, social media is blowing up today. We love it and appreciate it very much. Like the pages, share it. Let's spread the word around the KQAM page, facebook.com/1480KQAM. The Voice of Reason page, facebook.com/Mid-America Reason. And that way you can like them, you can share them. The Facebook Live is rolling as well. You can leave a comment, you can like it and share that as well. We need to beat the sports guys. Over on the other side of the wall is the sports guys over on KGSO, our friendly neighborhood sports talk hosts. And we love those guys very much so, but we have a healthy competition with them. They cannot beat us when it comes to Facebook Live hits. They just can't. I understand it's really hot and heavy right now with the basketball season. I understand that the madness has about to begun with the tournaments and with the brackets and with all the goodies. We're going to be having our brackets too, by the way. More information to come later on in the show today. Stay tuned. We'll tell you where you can go and fill out your bracket, the KQAM KGSO bracket. Your chance to win $250 from Tad's Locker Room. So stay tuned in. More information there. I will have a bracket that I'll get probably today. So tomorrow I will have my picks. I'll have it on the wall here. So if you're watching TV, if you're watching the Facebook Live, you'll be able to see it. I'll read some of them off to you if you're listening on the radio, and we can have some fun with the brackets. But you'll be able to have your opportunity to go to one of our participating sponsors throughout the Wichita and South Central Kansas area. Fill out your bracket before the end of business on Wednesday. The tournament starts on Thursday. You have to have it turned in back to the business that you filled it out at on Wednesday, and that way you have an opportunity to win the great bucks from Tad's Locker Room, and you can also just have fun filling out a bracket. So we'll have more information on that, but we don't want the sports guys to beat us when it comes to our viewership. We just can't let that happen. We have tax rates happening. We have gun debates happening. We have negotiations with North Korea happening. We have a lot of really big things happening, and if those guys get more viewership on the Facebook Live than us talking about, I don't know, cool stuff, then that just ain't right. So go to the Facebook pages, like it, share it. Go to the Facebook Live feed, leave a comment, like it, and share it. Let's blast this out everywhere. Let's have a little fun with it today. What do you say? Healthy competition never hurt anybody. And me being a very competitive kind of guy, I will not tolerate sports guys beating me when it comes to Facebook Live. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Coming up on the show today in hour number 3. I am really excited about this, talking a little bit about sports, by the way. George Wingert is going to be joining us. He is the communications director for Race for Kansas. They are working on, up in the Kansas City area, bringing back horse racing to the state of Kansas. It's been in the works for a while. They were at Equifest. They're getting a lot of response, and it seems to be very productive. The problem is that we have progressive elites called the PETA, People Eating Tasty Animals. Oh, did I say that out loud? The PETA organization trying to block it because they feel that that's treating horses improperly. And the politics behind the animal rights activists in the state of Kansas wanting to ban horse racing and continue to ban horse racing in the state, whereas Race for Kansas is moving in the right direction, trying to allow it again and allowing equestrians and horse aficionados to be able to enjoy horse racing and actually the horses that they get to raise in the state. So we'll talk with them coming up in hour number 3. Should be a fun conversation. But until then, it's open line. See you at 316-721-8255. I want to touch on, this has been an ongoing trial, as you know, in the state. And no love for Secretary of State Chris Kobach from the media in any way, shape, or form. Is that anticipated? Of course it is. And we're not going to get anything else from them, do you think? Do you think that they'll ever say something nice about Chris Kobach at all in any way, shape, or form? Probably not. Do you ever think they're going to say, hey, he was right on this one? No, they probably don't. They probably won't. as far as I'm aware of, the mainstream media will never say anything positive or nice to Secretary of State Chris Kobach. Thursday was day number 3, and I didn't get a chance to touch on this on Friday, but day number 3 of the trial, as the American Civil Liberties Union kind of went off and said that out of the millions of voters in the state of Kansas, there were 5 non-citizens who attempted to vote in the entire state. Big deal, right? Oh, yeah. Can't be having something like that. Out of the millions that tried to vote, of the 38 individuals from the spreadsheet that was presented saying that individuals who tried to vote that shouldn't have voted, only 5 are non-citizens. And might I remind you, those were 5 individuals that could have potentially voted that actually, thanks to our system that Secretary of State Chris Kobach has put in place, they were not able to vote. 5's too many. I don't understand. I don't get where they don't just grasp it. The light bulb has not quite kicked on yet for them to say, oh, yeah, every single vote is precious. One vote that's voted illegally or voted wrong is something that we need to address. And the fact that it's not quite as stringent as we thought is a good thing. That's very good news, because that means that the systems that we have in place are actually working. And it's time to refine it and fine-tune it just a little bit, so that way those 5 that tried to vote that are illegal individuals, that are non-citizens, didn't get the chance to vote. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is positive news. That's something we should be proud about. But the American Civil Liberties Union trying to block him every step of the way. The courts not liking how Chris Kobach's actually presenting the evidence because the ACLU didn't get a copy of that evidence. Therefore, they don't like it very much, and they're not going to allow it to be actually included into the discussion. And they're just trying to block him every which way. Now, I understand there's a process. I understand that there is a system that he has to abide by. Absolutely. The spreadsheet contains 3 types of individuals: 18 non-citizens who successfully registered to vote, 16 who attempted to register to vote, and 4 who were blocked until an appeals court halted enforcement of the state's proof of citizenship law. Those 4 became citizens before voting. So right now we're in this tug-of-war between who's allowed to vote, who's not allowed to vote, Chris Kobach being the front of that. And remember what the sole purpose of the opposition is. We have states right now that are allowing anybody, citizen or non-citizen, to be able to vote. Anybody. The state of Maryland recently just passed, in many of its local municipalities, passed laws to allow green card recipients, student visas, work visas, temporary visas, non-American citizens. They passed the local municipality laws to allow them to vote. We have parts of the nation that are wanting individuals who are not here on a permanent basis, who are actually non-citizens, who are here on work visas, student visas, whatever, or who are here illegally. They are passing laws to allow them to vote. And I ask you, are you okay with your votes being eliminated, being canceled out based on someone who's here permanently or not here permanently? Let's say they have a work visa. They're here for 6 months. They're here to work, do their job, go home. Do you want them to actually be able to cast a ballot, cast a vote, have their say in our election, and then leave, and then us deal with the consequences, whatever that may be? Do you really think that they should be having the opportunity and the right to vote? Secretary of State Chris Kobach says no. I say personally, hell no. I don't want them voting. They are non-citizens. They do not have a voice in our electoral process. They do not have a voice when it comes to our governmental system. They are here as a guest to do a job and then leave. Or if you have a student visa, you are here to educate yourself and then leave. Or to apply for a different type of work visa, or to apply for citizenship. When you say, finally, I'm going to become an American citizen, I want to be part of the American process, I want to have a say in the American college, or the American electoral college, or the American voting system, or the American civil duty, or whatever that you feel that you need to be a part of. If you want to say that you're proud to be an American and you're waving that American flag and say, I have my citizenship document right here, then you have that great beauty and that great right to cast your ballot. Until then, it doesn't. I don't care if you're here for 2 years, 3 years on a student visa or a work visa. That does not mean that you get to be part of the governmental system. It just doesn't. And that's what we're trying to fight. This case, this trial, is going to have more repercussions, positive or negative, than we imagine. Because this is the law that Chris Kobach's leading the charge for this nationally. That's why he got called up to the federal level to try the Election Integrity Commission. Didn't work out. We need to try it again. But whatever comes out of this case, whatever comes out of this trial, we need to understand that Chris Kobach either is going to lead the charge to allow other states to have the same opportunity to do what we're doing, or the courts are going to come back and say it's unconstitutional, you're not allowed to do this, and then we're going to see states go towards like Maryland, to where we're going to loosey-goosey, loosen the girdle up a little bit, let the belly kind of breathe, if you want to put it that way, and we're going to allow just anybody to vote, including individuals who are not here legally, including individuals who are only here temporary, including individuals who are non-U.S. citizens. And they're going to have a vote. They're going to come out in mass. They're going to override any of your and I's votes in rural communities. And then guess what? I wonder what side of the aisle is going to predominantly have the power in American politics. 316-721-8255. Your thoughts on this? The trial's still going on. That was Thursday, day number 3 of that. The last couple of days, Kobach prepares to eventually lose voter registration case. And that's the latest from the media, as they say that he's already working on his alternative plans after he loses the case. Why? Because he's losing, because he's in the wrong, right? Or maybe it's because he realizes that he's in a place to where there are judicial activists with an agenda, and they're going to make him look bad, and he's already working on his contingency plan. If you're going into a losing situation, do you just try and put all your eggs in one basket, or do you have a backup plan? Shocker, right? He actually has a backup plan. Let's go to the phones and get your thoughts on this case. How long do you think it's going to last? What kind of outcome do you think is actually going to happen when it comes to the trial, when it comes to voter security, voter identification, and the process of being allowed to vote in our governmental system? One of the most precious things that we can have in our society. Let's get to your thoughts on this. Line number 1 here. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, good morning, Scott. How are you?
Well, voting fraud is just the tip of the iceberg. Right now, you have people who are committing treason against the United States because they're using business, because they've already got it to where most everything you buy in a store has not only an English label but a Spanish label. So they're already collaborating against the United States as it is, because they're working for the New World Order. They're trying to make that North American Union, where you got Canada, United States, and Mexico all in part of one type of group. And then they're going to change all the laws, and they're going to get rid of your guns and everything when they do that anyway.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, and especially when it comes to the multi-labeling with different languages on there. Now, I don't necessarily blame the businesses. I don't see the business really being at fault. What's that?
Who owns the product if not the business? I mean, they can't do it without the business as a cooperation.
Well, sure. I mean, I see the businesses just seeing an opportunity here, saying, well, you know what, there are people, whether they agree or disagree with the fact that not everybody speaks the same language, that they're just saying we have a demographic in the nation or in this certain area where we're selling our product that we're missing out on, so let's create a label in order to appeal to them in that sense. So I don't necessarily blame the business. They're just looking to be able to increase their revenues. I do blame society for actually allowing that to happen in the first place, especially I would be more critical of the governmental systems and the governmental programs that create pamphlets and labels and even voting ballots in different languages, because that is the government. No, we don't have a national language as English. It should be, but we don't right now. Maybe that's something we need to work on. But I blame more the governmental entities allowing that to happen than the businesses that are just utilizing the opportunity that they see in front of them.
Yeah, but see, the businesses, you know, they're working on the fact that, you know, they're collaborating with the New World Order agenda. I mean, that's why they got these gender-neutral type of thing they're trying to send in school, where, you know, the schools are saying, well, you know, you can be a boy, a girl, or a fly, or a snake, or whatever you want to be, because they're trying to confuse kids at an early age, so by the time they do get a chance to vote, they're going to be so confused, they're not going to know up from down.
Sure. No, I mean, I can definitely see it, and it's definitely it's not helping the agenda in any way, shape, or form when it comes to actually making people assimilate into society. I'll give you that for sure. I appreciate the call, Scott. I want to get to another one here. You're absolutely right that we're not advancing the idea of assimilating by creating products that are in different languages and their labels and so on and so forth. I don't necessarily see that as the agenda that they're trying to push, as opposed to that just kind of being the byproduct of what's happening because they're utilizing the opportunity to increase revenues by appealing to a new demographic. So I think that's definitely a bystander, not necessarily the motive behind what they're doing, but it does play 1 and 1. Again, I would blame more the government saying, hey, let's create this more hemispherical or regional type of mentality where we don't have the United States and Canada and Mexico, but we have some sort of trade agreement to where we're all just one big happy little family between all of them. Then we can learn French because of the Canadians up north, and then we can learn Spanish with the Hispanics down south, and then we can learn English, and then we can just be all one happy family, and we should start making everything into a trifecta of different languages, so that way we see the signs, and there's 3 different labels behind the sign or underneath the sign with all the different languages. That's what the government is pushing. I don't see it, the business is necessarily wanting to push that, as opposed to saying we have an opportunity to actually make that happen. Let's squeeze in one more phone call here real quick, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning. This is Sean.
Sean, what's going on, sir?
Hey, it's a wonderful Monday. Hey, your previous caller, I'm going to be very respectful, but, there's a lot of people that think that way, that, these multinational companies that are forcing us to speak Spanish, or, they put labels on that shows somehow that they're in support of a one world order, or whatever the new group is now that's going to join the entire world and multilateral, whatever it is. Anyway, I can tell you, it was almost 30 years ago, I sold insurance out in Arizona with a very, very small agency out there, sold auto insurance, and our main customers were Hispanics. And it just so happened the owners of the agency were actually from Iowa. And one was a senior citizen. She was probably in her late 70s at the time. And I speak fluent Spanish. And it was one of the reasons that her son actually hired me, because, they didn't speak Spanish. And the first time that I spoke Spanish to a customer, she just about came unglued with me. Those people should speak English, not Spanish. What are we doing? And I said, well, do you want to sell them insurance or don't you?
Sure.
And she just sat there. She goes, well, it's not right. I said, it doesn't matter. So my point, your point is, and my point is that, we accommodate them as customers, not as illegal immigrants or as people who don't speak English. We accommodate them as customers because they have something in their wallet that I need.
Right.
And I have something on my desk that they need. And they're going to go to the place where, they can make that transaction and feel most comfortable. And if I can make them feel more comfortable by speaking their language to them and understanding their culture and their needs and concerns, I'm going to get the business over the person that sits there and says, nope, speak English, or I can't talk with you.
Exactly. I mean, it's not the political motive to say, hey, let's start trying to create this plethora and number of languages all over the place. But as you mentioned, it is the revenue that the business sees of, hey, there's a demographic of individuals who speaks a different language. They have their cash that's the same value as our cash here, and let's appeal to them so that way they'll be more inclined to be able to purchase our product. So, Sean, I appreciate that very much. Exactly the point. But I get what Scott's making as well. I mean, even though that may not be the motive behind that still advances the idea of pluralism when it comes to languages and a lack of assimilation in society. But that should be the push from the government, not from the business. It's a very interesting conversation. I want to continue that when we come back. Got to take a break. 26 minutes past the hour. Your thoughts and calls on this. This is The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
The real question that we have is, if we disallow assimilation into society, would we even have these issues with voter registration, with people wanting to register to become a voter, to become a naturalized citizen? Would we have these problems in the first place? They kind of go hand in hand when it comes to assimilating into society. Lots more coming up. Stay here.
While in the merry month of May, now from me home I started, left the girls and 2 and nearly broken hearted, saluted father dear, kissed me darling.
It's time for your daily dose of reason.
Are you insane? I don't know, just ignore him.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Make it happen today, broadcasting right here on the Big Talker KQAM. Great to have you along today. 36 minutes past the hour. It is 1 week away, less than a week away, the week of St. Patrick's Day, and you should be extremely excited about that. It is Daylight Savings Monday. We're waking you up the best way that we know how to do so, and it's all about you today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK if you want to join in the question relating to the case right now going on in the trial with Secretary of State Chris Kobach and the ACLU. ACLU report to Chris Kobach shows 5 illegal voters out of 1.3 million ballots. Terrible ordeal, right? Scary thing. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. It's only 5 out of 1.3 million. It's okay. Your laws are ridiculous. People weren't able to vote. According to the ACLU, they say the state's proof of citizenship law prevented more than 30,000 eligible Kansans from casting votes. How? How did it prevent 30,000 people from not voting? I want to know. I want to know how a law that says all you need to do is send in a birth certificate to prove your citizenship, have your documents, have your voter ID, have your driver's license, get the documents and the information you need, and register. As you know, I mean, we've been here for a couple of years. We're transitioning all of our stuff from Colorado to Kansas. My wife and I are, and she got her Kansas driver's license just a few weeks ago. And it was really exciting. It's really cool. They asked for some additional documentation. She had to go home and she got it. And then she went back and she delivered it and she showed it. Guess what? She now has her Kansas driver's license. It wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't the end of the world. Yes, you had to go through another little hurdle and a piece of red tape. Guess what? She did it, and now she has a Kansas driver's license. It's not something that we complain about. So I question how 30,000 people in the state of Kansas were not able to vote that should have voted that were legal citizens. The only thing I can think of is that maybe they're trying to appeal like they were in Maryland to where they say that non-citizens should be allowed to vote. If you have a green card, if you have a temporary work visa, if you have a student visa, and then try and make them be allowed to vote, which they should not be allowed to vote. We need to work on the entire assimilation process. If we allow assimilation, then we wouldn't have these problems in the first place, right? That's what you would think. If you say, welcome to America, you're going to assimilate to our culture, you're going to assimilate to our language, you're going to assimilate to how everybody operates here. You can do whatever you want to in the privacy of your home. We don't want you to lose your culture. We don't want you to lose your traditions. We don't want you to lose your identity of who you are and where you came from. But you need to intertwine that with what we do in the United States. You need to be able to function in the United States by speaking the language everybody else speaks, so that way you can actually buy things. Maybe you can sell things. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you can actually create a business and have people walk in and be able to converse with them without saying, sorry, I don't speak your language. I've been going back and forth, and maybe this is the perfect time to do so, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I've been going back and forth with certain members of the family on my 3-year-old daughter and whether she should be learning to speak another language. And I am not the biggest fan of doing that. I don't necessarily care. Now, if she's going to, being at the young age that she is the best time to be able to have her do so. But why? When we focus on assimilating into society, unless she plans on going overseas and living overseas, there's really no need, is there? I mean, it's nice to have. It's kind of cool. It's fun. Obviously, Sean, with our caller a while ago, definitely benefited him. He went to certain areas of the nation and certain areas where he was able to sell the insurance and he was able to speak Spanish, and therefore he had a whole new clientele of what he was able to do with that language. But if we're focusing on assimilation into society, by allowing yourself to assimilate into society by speaking English, by functioning the way that we function in the United States, regardless of where you come from. Maybe it's a Hispanic nation, maybe it's a French nation, maybe it's an Asian nation, maybe it's whatever. It doesn't matter. When you come to the United States and you say, I want to go to the market and I want to go buy something, what do you have to do? You have to be able to converse with somebody to ask, where is the milk? Where is the bread? If you want to start a business, unless you're only pandering to that one demographic, in which case then we see little Mexico, or we see little Asia, or we see little China, or we see little whatever, and we have our own little communities where we converse in our old traditions, then we've essentially just moved our old country into a fun little area in the new country, and we don't converse with anybody outside of that realm. Is that assimilation into society? No. It's not assimilation in any way, shape, or form. It's not helping society in any way, shape, or form. And then we run into the problems that we're seeing right now to where we have how many different ballots in different languages across the nation. When we see pamphlets saying welcome to America in 30 different languages. When we're seeing businesses appeal to certain demos and certain groups in different languages. It's not assimilation. We're seeing little sects of groups of people in different areas, and that's not helping us. So the question I have to you, because this falls right into the same thing with the ACLU saying 5 illegals voted out of the 1.3 million. It's not that big of a deal. When we talk about how insignificant that is, which it is, 5 people. Guess what? 5 people got their vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't have voted in the first place. That is a big deal. 1 is one too many. And this falls directly in line with the assimilation discussion that we have on how should we be assimilating into our society. And I know I'm kind of in the minority here, but I have no interest in wanting my daughter to learn different languages to try and assimilate to somebody else when she lives here. Now, if she has that interest later on, all the power to her. I don't see the need for it right now, personally. This is The Voice of Reason. Let's go to the news with Rick. Making it happen today.
Buenos días, Andy, y buenos días a todos ahí. ¿Cómo estás? Good morning, Andy. Good morning, everyone. A former Kansas legislator, now the second Wichitan to pull out of the gubernatorian. That's a new word.
I am a gubernatorian.
Let's start over. Good morning.
Let's try it again. Hold on, wait. We got to do it again here. Ready to go. Here we go.
It's time for some good news.
Okay, here we go, people.
And now it's time for Rick with the news.
It's been one of those time change Mondays.
Well, I was going to say the daylight savings. Now we just went back 3 minutes to try it again.
Yes,
so we went back in time.
So we're still early by my standards.
You're looking for.
A former Kansas legislator who founded a Wichita construction company has now dropped out of the crowded race for governor. Former state representative Mark Hutton announced Friday that he was leaving the race for the Republican nomination. Hutton trailed Republican Jeff Collier and Insurance Commissioner Ken Seltzer in fundraising and began the race with less name recognition than Collier and fellow GOP rival Secretary of State Chris Kobach.
He was a good candidate, too. I'm a little sad he left. Sorry. Yeah.
Why are you commenting in news?
You know, it just kind of popped in there.
You sit here
it was
and just run and run and run, and you take my 60 seconds.
I am terribly sorry. I was just excited. I was a little sad. I mentioned it in the last time. I was just a little sad that he was a solid candidate.
A new law in Kansas promises harsher sentences for repeat drunken drivers who kill or injure others. Kansas Governor Jeff Collier Friday signed Caitlin's Law. It stiffens penalties for drivers who cause accidents while intoxicated or while circumventing restrictions placed on them as a result of DUI convictions. The new law takes effect in July and is named after the victim of a fatal crash caused by a drunken driver. A Wichita police officer perhaps being credited with saving a life of a crash victim. Wichita police say one man was pronounced dead at the scene and another was pulled away from a vehicle engulfed in flames after a pickup truck struck a tree around 1:30 Saturday morning. Officers were called to the single-vehicle accident at Edwards and 2nd Street and located a vehicle in the front yard of the residence. KSN reports the front passenger, a 29-year-old man, escaped the vehicle and was pulled to safety by officers. As the vehicle caught fire, he was transported to a local hospital and expected to make a full recovery. The driver, a 28-year-old male, was pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of that accident still under investigation. Cake TV reporting that alcohol may have played a factor. And the KU Jayhawks will be the headliner among 8 teams coming to Wichita this week for the first and second rounds of the NCAA tournament at Intrust Bank Arena. Before the games begin, you can catch all 8 teams in open practices. That'll take place this Wednesday at Intrust. KU, the Midwest region's number 1 seed, tips off against number 16 seed Penn at 12:50 Thursday afternoon. Any comments?
That's going to be a lot of fun. I do enjoy the fact that
That's
there
the
are
news. I'm
sporting
out of
teams
here.
coming to the Wichita area. I am excited about.
News.
I mean, it's going to bring in some new individuals into the area. I'm going to find really fascinating about these basketball tournaments after California felt like banning the state-run travel and the state-funded travel to the state of Kansas because we're so bigoted and evil and terrible and racist. So I'm going to find that quite entertaining to see what's going to happen with these basketball tournaments in the Wichita area. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK if you want to join in here. Rick, swinging back in for a second.
I am.
Yes.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that our March, I can't say that the brackets come out today.
Yes.
The brackets of excitement.
The brackets of excitement.
They'll be out late morning, early afternoon. It's your opportunity to win $250 worth of gift certificates from Tad's Locker Room. Here is where you can get your March excitement brackets. Yes. They will be at Cholita's Mexican Restaurant, Autocraft Collision Repair, China's Bar and Grill in Cheney, Best Friends Pet Clinic on Central, Continental Truck Accessories on South Broadway, Toppers Plus, Phil's Coins, Maximum Outdoor Equipment Service on West Street, PJ's Bar and Grill, of course, Tad's Locker Room, Heartland Avionics in Augusta, Hatman Jack's, any one of the 4 independently owned Davis Liquor locations, Bill Mole Allstate Insurance, Trailers and More on Mays Road, Warren and Fiegel Optometry at 21st and Tyler, Heartland Bicycle in Old Town, Kansas Body Works over on Mosley, Design One Upholstery at their new location on Colorado Street, J&G Flooring and Cabinets, Auto Tech Service and Audio, Jewelry Savers, and at Kenton Roxy's Spectacle Shop. So those March Madness brackets coming out late morning, early afternoon. Get one, pick it up, fill it out.
You got to do it before Wednesday night, too.
Yep. All the brackets will be polled by the individual advertisers no later than 11 o'clock Thursday morning.
There it is. Get them while it's hot. The official list, we'll go through that again throughout the day and the next couple of days to remind you to get out and do that. We're going to have a bracket here in the studio as well that we can keep tabs because this is going to be the ultimate. I've actually paid some half attention to the basketball tournaments this year, and we can actually maybe do somewhat decent on the bracket here for the Voice of Reason. We'll have a little fun with that. Got some calls on the line. Stay tuned. Got to take a break. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. 48 minutes past the hour. This is the Voice of Reason.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Wrapping up hour number 2 right here on The Voice of Reason. Appreciate you hanging out with us today, starting off a day, having a little fun while doing it, even the daylight savings. Yes, I know it's a little bit earlier. That's what we're here for, trying to wake you up the proper way. Welcome back in. This portion of The Voice of Reason, as it always is on a Monday, brought to you by the AARP, whether it's the Fraud Watch Network, the Retirement Calculator, getting involved in the community, wanting to become a caretaker, does not matter. The AARP's got you. Check them out, aarp.org/KS for the state of Kansas. Marin Turner is on the line with us from the AARP. Good morning, Marin. How are you today?
Good morning, Andy. I'm fine. How are you?
Hey, we're living the dream, having more fun than we should be, and hopefully you're getting adjusted appropriately for the daylight savings today. It's slowly but surely the sun's coming up, and we're gonna have a good day today.
Oh, I really like daylight savings time. I like having more daylight time to, do things that need to get done.
Exactly. I'm right there with you. Let's get to it. The AARP has been very busy. Last year was a very successful year for you guys. This year you have a lot of things on the agenda that you are working on and some very great things. One of them is working with some of our state legislators and working on the resolution right now that allows small businesses to offer some retirement saving options for a lot of their workers. Talk about what the bill is and what you guys, how much involved you are with this.
Well, we know that most people want to have a secure retirement, yet it's out of reach for millions of Americans, especially if you work for a small business. And here in Kansas, we know that 42% of Kansans between the ages of 18 and 64 work in the private sector for small businesses. So that's 423,000 people who don't have an option for a retirement plan. And so we're pushing for a common sense solution that supports small businesses by making it easier to offer a retirement savings option. And it also helps employees because they're able to grow their retirement savings and control their futures. So this today, there will be a concurrent resolution that's heard on the Senate floor that AARP is definitely supporting on behalf of not only small businesses, but also employees who work for those small businesses.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's nice that we're focusing on something like that because nowadays we rely way too much on the Social Security, and with how many issues the government has on Social Security and the dependency and the little bit of money you do get, we need to have our own savings plan set up so that way the Social Security retirement packages that we do get that way, they're supplemental to the main bread and butter that we could have that is a savings. And it's really important for us to really focus on taking care of ourselves in the days after we actually want to retire and enjoy life a little bit.
You're absolutely right. Unfortunately, Social Security is not enough to depend on. The average benefit for someone 65 plus is about $18,000 a year. But when you consider that older Americans spend $20,000 on food, on utilities, and healthcare, it really isn't enough. And so having a workplace option for retirement savings is really important for Kansans.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of, it is tax season right now. I went and actually filed my taxes over the weekend. Everybody's starting to shift gears. April 15th is the deadline for that. But you guys, as usual, have different tips to be able to help individuals prepare their taxes and to get them filed as well, correct?
That's correct. We have our AARP Tax Aid program with 20 sites across Wichita. The sites are run by IRS-trained volunteers who know what they're doing, and they can help you save lots of money if you want to come in and file your taxes with AARP. So I would encourage you to call 1-866-448-3619 to find out how you can make an appointment at your nearest tax aid site. You can also log on to our website and find out more information at www.aarp.org/ks.
Very good. Great information there. We got about a minute and a half or so left as well. But do talk about, we got to ask you, upcoming, the next movie for grown-ups is next month. What are we looking forward to, and how can people get registered for that one?
Well, first, Andy, I want to thank everyone who has supported the Movies for Grown-ups series that we've been offering in Wichita. It's been very successful. People have come out and gotten to know AARP, and we've been able to help make a contribution to the industry to show that there really is an audience for mature moviegoers. And so on April 19th, we're going to be offering another Movies for Grown-ups. This one is going to be Molly's Game. I don't know if you've heard of that, Andy?
I have not heard that one, no.
Yeah, well, it's a true story about Molly Bloom, who was an Olympic-class skier, but she became the target of an FBI investigation for her underground poker empire. So if you like a crime drama, this is going to really be a good one for you to come out and see.
How fun. It is coming up next month, so they have a little bit of time, but we got about 30 seconds. How can people get registered to go see that?
Well, it is a free movie, and again, if you'd like to come out and join us for a night of fun, just call us at 1-866-448-3619, or you can log on to our website and find out more information at www.aarp.org/ks.
There it is. Great information. Great stuff happening with the AARP. Marin, appreciate you joining us today. Happy Monday. We'll look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Thanks, Andy.
Hey, always a great time. This portion of The Voice of Reason, as it always is, brought to you by the AARP. Hour number 3 coming up. Lots to get to today. It is a Monday. It's Daylight Savings. Lots more coming on The Voice of Reason.
It's time for Reason.
Why should we feel guilty for arresting you? Why should we be like, you know what? You're okay. You're a chemist, you're a teacher, you're contributing to society. Let's just let it slide. Why? We have laws for a reason, and it makes no sense to me why we would just say, you know what? We need to reform our immigration policy, and it's just too stringent. We're just going to say, rule of law, hey, here's a window. Let's go ahead and throw it out there.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what what it's all about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3 of the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of Wichita, Kansas, right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side and 102.5 on the FM side. KQAM simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Great to have you along. Great to be with you. Welcome aboard on a Monday. It is not just a Monday, but a daylight savings Monday. Yes, it's very difficult for you to get started this morning, but guess what? That's why we're here. We're here to wake you up, get you excited, ready to go for a whole new day. And we do that right here on the Voice of Reason. Trying to set the tone, not just for today, but also for the entire week, making you the productive citizen that you need to be because, hey, your tax money goes a long way around here, right? That's what we're saying. Let's do it.
Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. We have a great hour set up for you. Your phone calls we do want to get to here in just a second. You can always shoot me a message on Facebook, on social media. Facebook Live is rolling right now as well. You can check us out pretty much everywhere you want to. Twitter at Hoosier Reason. I don't even have my Twitter up right now. That's okay because I don't want to tweet, but you can still send me a message or you can email me, Andy at KQAMradio.com. You can always shoot me a message on Facebook as well, Facebook.com, on KQAM, or on the Voice of Reason page. We got some calls on the line. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. I do want to get to you, but I do want to shift gears just for a second. As you know, we're all about not just the political improvement of the nation and of the state, but we're also about trying to make our state and our communities a better place. And there are some that just like to cause an issue because they like to cause an issue. And then there are some that actually like to create opportunities for us to enjoy our hobbies, enjoy our entertainment, enjoy great sports, enjoy the history of what this state's all about, and enjoy things that we actually have an opportunity to enjoy. And one of these organizations is Race for Kansas. RaceForKansas.com is they are working on, they were involved with Equifest. They're working on trying to get horse racing back into the state of Kansas. And I'm really excited to have the spokesperson for Race for Kansas on the show with us here. He's George Wingert on the line. George, good morning to you. How are you?
Very good, my friend. Appreciate having the opportunity to visit with your listeners.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. The question is, what is the Race for Kansas, George?
The Race for Kansas is a group of people that want to bring back to Kansas the horse racing industry and the dog racing industry. The greyhound industry, as a lot of your listeners will know, and some of them may not, is basically centered in Abilene, Kansas, and they raise more greyhounds in the Dickinson County of Kansas than anywhere else in, I guess, the world, especially the United States.
Wow.
And ship them to all over the world.
Well, the question is, why did it go away?
Well, because of the tax implications that were started in Senate Bill 66. The casinos have a tax rate at 22%, and the tracks at a 44%, at 40%, and it was just not economically feasible to have that much difference between the tax rates. So that was the real reason behind the whole thing. Why that when the Senate bill was passed, they thought really that probably it would work, but it wouldn't. So they the 4 tracks have all closed. The tracks in Wichita, Frontenac, down in Pittsburgh, Kansas, close to Pittsburgh, and the Woodlands. And our organization is wanting to reduce the tax rate so it's equal, so it's 22% both for the casinos and the racinos. And the racinos, some people think that the racinos would have an unfair advantage of them if they got down to 22, but those of us in the business think that what's good for one is good for another. Actually, it's the tax rate on the slot machines, so it's not on the other things. So, and the Race for Kansas is made up of a group of horse breeders, both thoroughbred and quarter horse breeders, all over the state of Kansas, and then also the greyhound breeders all over the state of Kansas. Practically every county in Kansas has either a thoroughbred, a quarter horse, or a greyhound breeder in it. So our group reaches every county in Kansas.
I had no idea it was that big in the state. When did these taxes take effect, and when did these tracks start dying off?
Well, they started dying off back about 10 years ago. When Senate bill was passed, it was passed with the idea that it would save the tracks and make them financially feasible. Well, if the tax would have been the same, it would have been. But when it was put at the disparaging difference, why it just made it financially unfeasible to do it. We still have a great racing business of producing races, and there's like a great thoroughbred racing thing in Johnson County. The Ratke's back there, and then out in western Kansas, I think it's Scott City, and I should have looked it up. They have a farm out there, especially, and I think it's just as it's interesting to me, the little things that you pick up. They've got out there. They named one of their horses Fort Leonard after Larned, Kansas. It ran in the Derby 3 or 4 years ago, and last year they had a horse running in the Derby named McCracken. That's after 2 towns. If your listeners in western Kansas know where those 2 towns are, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. And they've been breeding thoroughbreds out there for a long time and been very successful. And there's lots of others that breed thoroughbreds now and quarter horses and race in Oklahoma and other states and Iowa and Minnesota and
sure.
and all. And we'd just like to bring it back to the tracks. One of the interesting things is Eureka over there has Eureka Downs, which we'd bring it back, would be great for the people in that area.
Well, it would make sense to be able to lower the tax rates, as you mentioned, back to where they were, comparable to any other type of casino or any type of gambling in that sense. And that way we could open these back up, because it sounds like we have breeders all over the place in the state of Kansas that are now having to be forced outside of the state to go other places. And we're not being able to actually enjoy them here at home, which doesn't make any sense to me. This could be a huge attribute and actually be a revenue generator for the state, to be some entertainment value for different parts of the state, and for the hobbyists who enjoy the horses, who enjoy the greyhounds, who enjoy this type of industry. They don't have to travel all over the rest of the country in order to just enjoy it when they could right in their backyard here.
That's absolutely right. Now, there's also a group that think that greyhounds are abused and all, and I kind of always smile when that. Last year, the greyhounds have an auction in the spring and the fall. Last fall, I walked into the auction in Abilene about halfway through it, and as I walked in, Tracy Wiley was selling a dog, and it brought $19,000.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, whew. I said, that dog should have never been abused. Or none of her been to get up to that. And so anyway, I smiled and waved at Tracy, and though she came around a few minutes later, and I said, I want to visit with you a minute. And she says, well, I'll be right back. So anyway, in about 15 minutes, she came back, and a friend of mine, Doug Lawrence, and I were standing there visiting, and so I was congratulating her on selling a dog for $19,000. And Doug says, well, tell her about the other dog that sold earlier. It bought $41,000. And I said, I want to get your picture of these dogs. And she kind of smiled, and she says, I just put them on a trailer, and they're going by Junction City. They're going to Wheeling, West Virginia, to the dog track back there. They'll be running back there in a week.
Sure.
And so, and all the greyhound farms I've ever been on are their dogs are well kept. They're well thought of. They're inspected by the greyhounds twice a year, and any abuse or anything. And when they're retired, 90-some% of them are adopted out as pets, which makes they make a great pet.
Oh, I bet.
They're the right temperament, and they're big enough that kids can waller around on them, and they like them. And now every so often, of people that don't understand this, the greyhounds is liable to lick your 2-year-old in the face, and the 2-year-old's giving it a hug. But I never known anybody to get sick by loving a dog.
No,
if
absolutely.
you don't like dogs, why? You're missing something in life.
Well, then there's that. Sure. We got a message on Facebook asking a question about the tax rate, the difference between the slot machines and for the horse and dog racing. Is the tax rate, would it be the same, or would it be a different tax rate between the different two if we ended up making this happen?
It would be the same. It would be the same.
Rate. Okay.
Yeah, right. There's the 4 casinos in Kansas, and they all pay 22%, and that's what the racinos would pay.
Sure.
22%. One of the things I'd like to point out too, and this is just interesting to me from my years of experience in Kansas, that 2 of the casinos, in fact 3 of them, are actually owned by people out of state. One Boyd Gaming in Las Vegas, and the France family and Penn National in Pennsylvania, and the profits from those, which is about $90 million from Boyd's down at Kansas Star, goes to Las Vegas, and the others go to about $60 million go to that to Pennsylvania and Florida. And Phil Ruffin, who owns the tracks that we had here, he's actually invested most of his money in Kansas in different ventures and all. And over the years, he's had convenience stores in a lot of the counties in Kansas, not near all of them, but probably 15 or 20. And he spends a lot of money in Wichita and other activities. So he'd actually keep most of those tracks. The profits in those tracks would stay in Kansas, which is, to me, a big difference for the tax dollars' sake.
Sure. Talk about the organization Race for Kansas itself a little bit. I know you guys were involved with Equifest and with our Mid-America Ag Network, with our network that we covered the Equifest kind of event itself, but you guys were involved in that as well. What kind of response have you been getting?
We've been getting tremendous response. It's kind of interesting when you tell the message out to individuals and they stand and or listen to you what you're actually doing. We're made up basically of horse breeders, dog breeders, and veterinarians, feed store people all over Kansas, and some from outside of Kansas that basically would they kind of grin and say, if you'd ever get your racing going, we'd bring our horses or dogs to Kansas and race.
Mm-hmm.
So and then the Ruffin and companies in Wichita, who I actually work for, are members of the racing association group that sponsor things like Equifest, and we're going to hold a meeting down in Emporia the 27th. It's primarily a horse meeting, but we'll be part of it to promote not only the racing horse industry, but the horse industry and whole. And part of our deal is for the Kansas Horse Council. Part of all the revenue that we would generate would go to the Horse Council. That would go to help all the horse industry. Primarily, it started off to help we put it in there to help the junior wrangler horse associations in Kansas. So we hope to cover a lot of the basis of anything to do with horses, and any organization that's supporting it, why we try to be there to assist them.
Sure. I have to ask you, and we got a few minutes left here before we have to let you go, but my wife, she used to be extremely involved in horses. When she was in high school, we grew up in Colorado. She was a barrel racer. She had horses. Her family still has horses, and they're very involved with them. And I know that these horses are treated very, very well. These dogs are treated very, very well when it comes to these races, but there are, of course, those extremists and the animal rights activists and everybody that's causing an issue that's, I'm sure, had some part to get rid of some of these races in Kansas with the inhumane or unfair treatment of these animals or whatever the case is. Have they been causing a stir with your guys' movement, Race for Kansas, to try and get this back up and going?
Oh yeah, they're very active. They're very active. And it's probably not fair to them, but I like to kid them about them. I said, if you folks would work as hard to get the people to take care of the kids of Kansas as you do the dogs of Kansas, I said this would be a great state to live in. I said it's a great state now, but it'd be much better.
There it is.
And they don't like to do that, but then you got to enjoy life a little and kid them a little about it, because for every dog that's ever abused, why, there's probably 15 or 20 kids, and I, as far as I know, I don't know of a greyhound breeder that's ever abused a dog. Now, I'm sure there are, but it's just not in my acquaintanceship.
Sure.
And over the last 15 years, I got acquainted with a lot of them.
Well, that's true. I mean, you see them all over the place, and you're right. I mean, if you want them to run, if you want them to be healthy, then you're not going to abuse them in any way, shape, or form. And it goes along with the horses as well. They need to be in tip-top shape in order to actually race. And if you're going to try and abuse it, they're not going to be at the prime shape that they could be in. So I don't know where their concern is, but it only makes sense for them to throw a fit because, well, that's just what they do.
Yeah, that's the American way. That's the American way. I just one thing about it is they make life interesting some days that might be dull otherwise. So.
I love your perspective on that.
And you're right. It's interesting to me when you said your wife was a barrel racer, there is no more competitive business in the world than the barrel racers.
No doubt.
If you know that, and they get these horses and train them for the barrel races. A lot of them are racetrack horses that have raced on the racetrack and come out to be barrel racers.
I tell you what, it is a heck of an industry. My wife misses that. I didn't realize there was so much of a horse industry in Kansas. You hear about the cattle industry and the wheat and the grain and the corns and that sort of thing with all the egg, but you never really hear a whole lot of, or maybe I just haven't heard a whole lot about it, but hear a lot about the big horse industry in the state of Kansas. I didn't realize it was that big.
Oh, it is, and it's not as big as it used to be. 15 years ago, there was probably 300 members to the Thoroughbred Association, and I don't know how many, a lot in the Quarter Horse Association.
Wow.
And, of course, those numbers have dwindled since then, but there's no doubt in my mind they'd be back because there's just a lot of people that would do it if they could race close to home. It's just so much more convenient if they've got tracks close to home than it is to haul them to Oklahoma or Texas or Minnesota or Iowa or Illinois or somewhere.
Absolutely. It's raceforkansas.com. George Wingert is the spokesperson for Race for Kansas. George, if people want to get a hold of you, if they want some information on your organization, if they want to help out, how can people reach you guys?
Well, we're on social network and all as Race for Kansas, and then also I'll give you my phone number, and I answer it from about 7 in the morning to 8 at night, and that's 785-418-7934.
Very good.
I'd be glad to visit with anybody.
I love it. George, thank you so much for coming on the program. It's very interesting to hear about the new industry that we could potentially be having, and if we could just figure out, which, I mean, I know the tax rate debate's been going on for a long time for a lot of different industries in Kansas, but this is one that where I don't see the need to have an absurd tax rate on it just to try and kill the industry. So, George, I appreciate what you guys are doing very much. So thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll get you back on here again soon.
All right. Appreciate the opportunity to visit with your listeners.
Hey, appreciate it very much. That's George Wingert there with the Race for Kansas. Raceforkansas.com if you want information on that one. 24 minutes past the hour. We're going to take a break. We'll open up lines to you. When we come back, it's open lines for the rest of the show. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
His eyes, they closed, and his last breath spoke. He had seen all to be seen. A life once full, now an empty vase.
Bottom of the hour news coming up. Thanks again to George Wingert with the Race for Kansas, raceforkansas.com. If you want to check them out, open lines to you for the last half hour of the program. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
We'll be free. Wipe that golden tear from your mother, dear, and raise what's left of the flag for me. Then the rosary beads, counting 1, 2, 3, fell apart as they hit the floor. In our garb of black, we must pay respect to the color we're born to mourn.
Are you a Hoosier-holic?
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Call in now at 721-8255. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Wrapping up the show today. The last half hour, it's open lines to you. Make it happen. Whatever's on your mind as you're trying to adjust to the daylight savings. Appreciate George Wingert coming on the show. Raceforkansas.com is his website if you want to partake in some of that. Trying to lower the tax rate for the gambling of horse and dog racing in the state of Kansas, driving out the entire industry, driving out the competition, driving out the races that we so enjoy, especially with how many individuals breed these types of dogs and breed all of these horses, wanting to actually have some fun with it, trying to get people into the hobby, trying to get people into the racing, trying to get people involved with it, and we're missing out on that industry. Why? Because we want to tax too much. Shocker, right? Big shocker that we want to destroy an entire new industry because, hey, we should raise the taxes really, really high on there. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I do want to remind you, starting today, you may have heard the promos, but starting today, Disney on Ice tickets are available to you right here on the KQAM airwaves. You can listen to that during Laura Ingraham from noon to 2 every day. It is Disney on Ice in Trust Bank Arena. That show is next week, the 22nd through the 25th. You can see Mickey and Minnie. You can see all the great princesses if you have those little kiddos that want to actually go and watch this. Anna, Elsa, and Olaf from Frozen are all going to be there. Moana is going to be there. Nemo and Dory are going to be there. It's pretty much every Disney character. Toy Story is going to be there. The Inside Out, that movie I was talking about last week, is going to be there. Those characters. It's really cool. You're not going to want to miss it. Disney on Ice next week, March 22nd through the 25th. You have an opportunity to get your tickets right here on the KQAM airwaves. All you got to do is listen to Laura Ingraham, noon to 2, each day, Monday through Friday this week. Listen for the sounder. The sounder's going to fire off, and then you can call in, be caller number 1, and get your tickets to Disney on Ice next week. If you want to get your tickets as well, go to interestbankarena.com for more information. Also get your tickets at selectaseat.com, and you can purchase your tickets there, but you have your chance right here on the KQAM airwaves. Hat tip to Interest Bank Arena and KQAM Radio for providing those tickets, and we'll get you covered. All you got to do is listen for the sounder from noon to 2 sometime during Laura Ingraham today, right here on KQAM. 316-721-8255. It's open lines to you for the last half hour of the program as we talk about tax rates. And we haven't talked about this much lately because there hasn't been a whole lot of news lately. We know Kansas is working on some different tax rates. We've talked to a couple of our state legislators as they talk about possibly raising property tax rates, as they talk about raising sales tax rates, as they talk about wanting to pretty much raise taxes. That's where we're at right now. Remember, if we don't spend another penny more in the state above what was projected, then we will still run into a couple $100 million in a shortfall for next year for our 2-year budget. That's just the way it is. Now they're already talking about the massive amount of spending, and they want to compensate for that. They're not going to cut spending. It ain't going to happen. As much as we want them to do so, it's not going to happen. They're going to raise taxes, and we need to fight that. And an industry is a perfect example. Horse racing, dog racing. Perfect example of, let's raise taxes because we need to hurt the people. If you can gamble on horse racing, then you can afford to pay the high tax rate. It's not going to be that big of a deal. Guess what? Every racetrack in the state of Kansas died. Every racetrack in the state of Kansas went downhill, and now they're all closed. Now they're trying to bring it back. Shocker, right? We ended up taxing them to death. Taxing people more and more and more because we can just milk it and milk it and milk it and milk it is never a good idea. And our state legislature needs to figure that out very, very quickly. I filed my taxes over the weekend. I know many of you are filing your taxes the next couple of weeks. Guess what? You're going to owe the state of Kansas money. That's just the fact of the matter. You're going to owe. Unless you were able to deduct a whole lot or you had a crazy year like we did, and we ended up having to write things off, and we had donations, and we had to do remodels, and we had to do that, and we got to write some stuff off. I got a little bit back, which was nice, but that's not usually the case. It was a really weird year. I don't want to get into that personally, but that was a really weird year. But if you just have a straight up file your taxes, you're going to owe the money because of the retroactiveness. We talked to her when we were filing the taxes. I asked our tax lady, I said, how many people are owing the state of Kansas money this year? She said, just about everybody. Just about everybody. A few $100s for everybody usually to owe the state of Kansas money. Why? Because the state of Kansas saying, hey, baby, we got some money rolling in. Not only are we seeing 9 months of 9 months before we even implemented the tax increase, 9 months we're seeing revenues higher than projections in the state. Not only are we seeing that, and we're slowly being able to maybe stash money away, pay our old debts off, pay things that we wanted to actually do for the last couple of years that we haven't been able to do. Not only are we doing that, but they're still going to break in massive amounts of money with people filing their taxes. Just imagine. We have 1.8 million registered voters in the state of Kansas. Let's just say 1.5 million of them pay $300 for the state of Kansas when they owe. You realize how much money that is? You realize how much money that's going to go into the education, go into the expansion of Medicaid, go into the $20 million the judicial branch needs to be able to pay for their salaries because people are on the food lines, having to gather and get food from the food lines and from food pantries because they don't make enough as someone in the judicial branch. That's where we're at right now. Then we see the Republican response. And as we're seeing the difference in ideas when it comes to conservatism versus moderate Republicanism, if you want to go down that road, if you want to see the differences in the legislature as they're running for re-election for the midterms, or if you want to talk to the different candidates for governor running for both the Republicans and the Democrats, what their stance is on the tax rates. Some use not the phrase of we're going to raise your taxes, but we're going to stabilize the Kansas economy. We're going to put money back in the system where it needs to be. Not actually saying, I will raise your taxes. Others will say, I will not raise your taxes. And it's very evident between the difference, right? The two. Because you will not get someone to say, I will raise your taxes, because that sounds very, very bad, and people don't like that. Instead, they will say, we need to stabilize the economy. We need to fund what we need to fund. And then, okay, how are you going to do that? Well, by default, the only way to really do that is the only thing that really counts is actually raising the taxes. But Republicans, will they begin to shake on this? Will they begin to maybe go with the breeze a little bit, and will they back off on the tax debate? Now, some of them obviously won't. The staunch conservatives, both running for governor and running for legislature for different elections, they will not, but some might start wavering a little bit, especially if they're younger. The younger generation, according to the New York Times, some of the young Republicans are beginning to get different ideas on what to do with tax rates. Here's the headline that I saw from the New York Times. College Republicans propose an unusual idea from the right, a carbon tax. As the Republican Party struggles to find its footing with the next generation of voters, which isn't the case, but that's a different segment, several conservative college groups have banded together to champion something that's different to the party, which is a carbon tax. The group is led by Yale College Republicans, the main campus student organization for young Republicans at Yale, and include other prominent GOP groups and 22 other schools around the country, including Clemson University, South Carolina, North Carolina, yada, 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 under the name of the Students for Carbon Dividends. The coalition is backing an idea first brought up by Secretary of State James Baker III and former Secretary of State George Shultz, a tax carbon pollution produced by burning fossil fuels and then return the money to consumers as a dividend in the form of monthly cash payments to individuals, both adults and children alike. We have a Republican organization, ladies and gentlemen, that is advocating for the redistribution of wealth by a carbon tax on corporations. If you produce carbon, then we're going to tax you, and giving it as a monthly income for adults and children. Now, whether that's part of maybe the WIC program, whether that's part of the food stamp program, or whether it's strictly really just part of the experiment that we're seeing across the world right now of saying, let's give everybody a monthly set income that'll incentivize them to go out and get a job because they're going to be living in a better condition. This is coming from Republicans, ladies and gentlemen. This is coming from college Republicans at Yale University and many other universities across the country, wanting to create a carbon tax and then redistribute that wealth into monthly set incomes for individuals as dividends. 316-721-8255. Now, just imagine that coming into the state of Kansas as we want to raise taxes for, let's say, the casino industry with gambling, because that would never happen except for, the whole racing thing with horses and dogs. Raise the taxes on that, and then we could create a dividend for basic government income to the 1.8 million registered voters in the state of Kansas. What do you feel about that, baby? We could do that. And then maybe the Republican groups can actually be the ones advocating for this. Wouldn't that be nice? Your thoughts on this? 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phone, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
It's Nick, Andy. Good morning.
Nick, what's going on, my friend?
Well, it's interesting. My wife and I were having a conversation about taxes last night, and apparently there's a hearing this week on the food sales tax bill.
Yes.
Some about 3.25%, or I don't know exactly the deal. But and so we got talking about the different taxes, income, sales, and property, and things like COLA taxes and tax incentives for those who grow their own food and things like that. And I didn't know I was going to ask you what you thought the appropriate policy trajectory was on some of that stuff.
Do you want realistic of what we think the legislature will do, or my opinion on where it should be?
How about both?
I don't think that we're going to touch sales tax this year very much. I know Democrats have even proposed trying to lower sales tax on food because it's coming into a midterm election year, and they want to look good by saying, oh, look, we raised your income tax, now we can lower your sales tax because groceries are really expensive, which is true, but they're the ones that actually wanted to increase sales tax way before on food anyway, so they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. I don't think that we're going to see any changes on sales tax this year. Maybe next year, if the Democrats get control, they'll raise your property tax, raise your income tax, and then lower your sales tax and act like they're doing you a favor. But I don't see a change.
Right.
What I would like to see, theoretically, we should not be taxing a sales tax on food. I don't know very many states that do that. And I come from a state like Colorado to where the one good thing that they have done is say, that's necessity for people to live is to eat food. We're not going to put a sales tax on food. And I would like to see that go away completely, but that's not going to happen. We may see a 1% drop-ish maybe this year if they get enough support to look like they're doing something productive for the midterm election and say again that they're doing you a favor. But I highly doubt that we're going to see a whole lot of movement on sales tax. Now, property tax, I did see the bill that they're trying to increase your property tax rates. Income tax, I could see them trying to raise your income tax a little bit again. But I see them trying to hold off on any tax increases as much as they can until next year after the election, when they don't have to worry about getting reelected again for the next 2 years.
Right. No, our main contention point was the taxing of food that maybe not be so nutritional for you, like the Cinnamon Toast Crunch or all the sugary cereals and stuff like that. But I agree with you. On the other hand, we shouldn't be taxing anything like that.
Any type of food. No, we tax other things. We have sales tax there. And now look, or the other option to go, though, Nick, is that since right now sales tax altogether, food and non-food, non-perishable, everything, any type of sales tax in the state really generates about 60 to 65% of our tax revenue, then we really need to be looking at, honestly, if we are going to tax it, going the other way and doing nothing but a fair tax and getting rid of income tax altogether and then only having the sales tax. So we need to do one or the other, or if we're going to have the happy balance between the two, we really need to dramatically lower the sales tax on food and then talk about some of the other items on sales tax, but food especially. But right now, if that is going to be the bread and butter of our revenue, then we really need to be backing off on the income tax and then stabilizing the economy in that sense.
Very well. I just appreciate the conversation. I know we were talking about it last night, and I thought I'd at least chime in, but thank you, Andy.
Hey, I love it, Nick. I appreciate it very much. No, you guys are spot on, and you're right. I mean, there's a lot of discussion on what to do with the taxes right now. I don't see a whole lot of movement this year because just the fact that it's an election year. It's going to be a very big one. The Democrats see opportunity to take the governorship potentially with the pendulum that swings about every 8 years in the state. We have a midterm election to where Democrats feel like they're emboldened because I don't know why, but they feel like they're emboldened because they've seen traction other places, apparently, but they feel like they're going to be able to take some of that. The moderate Republicans feel like they're going to be able to work with Democrats a lot more, that the anti-Brownback movement is rising up to defeat Kobach, to defeat Brownback, to defeat Collier, to defeat all these conservatives, the Truth Caucus. They feel that they're emboldened, and they want your taxes to go up. Make no sense about it. They want your taxes to go up. They want more spending because that's all they talk about. We need more money for education. We need more money for the judicial branch. We need more money for this department or that department. We need more money for the highways and transportation. We need more money here and there. We need more money everywhere. It's a Dr. Seuss book with these guys and gals and others. They want the taxes to go up everywhere because they see the money to go everywhere. They see it as the endless supply of the pipeline going up to Topeka. We don't see it that way. And they're trying to hold off to play nice for the election so they can get elected and say that right now they're in the minority. They're not going to have the opportunity to do so. And then once they do get elected, then they can actually fix the state, a.k.a. taxing everybody to death. So they're going to do it now. They may have to do a little bit of tweaking depending on how the budget looks for the next year so they don't go back into the red. And they're going to have to do something. But it may be minuscule. But the tax debate really isn't going to be until next year. But yes, I agree with you. We need to lower the sales tax. And the Democrats that propose that, yeah, you're doing it for the wrong reason, but good for you for doing that. It's not really what you want to do, but it's what you're doing to make yourself look good. We need to lower the sales tax. Look, there's no reason why we should be taxing your food with a sales tax. That's absurd. It's ridiculous. It's preposterous. Or if you're going to, then we need to go straight fair tax, get rid of the income tax, and go strictly on sales. But they don't like that either. Because then they can't tax the evil rich people that have a lot of income coming in or businesses, because then the richie riches are getting off scot-free without having to pay for that, right? Those evil richie people. Gosh, what are you thinking trying to get rid of their taxes? But we need to go one way or the other. They're not going to do that. Nothing substantial is really going to happen until next year. Got to take a break. 9 minutes to the top of the hour. Your thoughts and calls when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
you're excited about it. Coming up less than a week away. This Saturday is pretty much the greatest day of the entire year. We're going to have our special on Friday for St. Patrick's Day. Stay tuned in for that. It'll be a lot of fun. It's one that I look forward to. Look, there's very few special shows that we do throughout the entire year. There is the 4th of July. That is the very patriotic hoorah. The September 11th memorial that we do. The Christmas Eve special, where we step away from the politics and we have a little fun with our fun audio bits. And then, of course, St. Patrick's Day. Our 4 holidays that we have fun with the entire show. Then we step away and just kind of indulge and have a little fun with that. Wear your green. You better be wearing your green. And you bet your you-know-whats that I'll be wearing green right here on The Voice of Reason for a Friday. 316-728-8255. About a minute left of the program. If you do want to try and make a last comment, thanks again to all the great phone calls, our great guests today. The race for Kansas, kind of an interesting topic as it sounds like. I mean, just imagine, let me ask you this. With tax rates going way, way up for gambling when it comes to racing horses and dogs, who do you think created that one? Where do you think that one came from? Oh, probably somebody who has a conflict with the racing and with gambling money going elsewhere, right? Who would that be? Probably the casinos, which means the casinos probably had some kind of special interest to be able to make some legislation raising the rates for racing as opposed to just the slots and the gambling because they didn't like that money going elsewhere. Trace the money, track the money, see where that all comes from. It's interesting to watch, and we'll see if we're able to start making a change on that one. As always, appreciate all the phone calls, all the guests, everybody checking it out, tuning in to the show. It's a daylight savings. Hope you woke up properly. This is your show as always. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason, baby. This is The Voice of Reason. Have a great Monday.